You have 60 seconds to live unless I cut into your chest. Now! I shouted, hands trembling, sweat dripping down my forehead as the sirens blared in the distance. The van rocked slightly with my movements, sterile lights casting harsh shadows over the man lying before me. His face was pale, lifeless, chest heaving in faint, desperate attempts to hold on. I didn't have time for permission. Didn't have time for protocol. Not when a life was hanging by a thread. I heard the banging again, on the back doors this time, accompanied by shouting voices. The cops had arrived. Perfect. They didn't know what I was doing in here. They didn't care. All they saw was a suspicious van parked in a neighborhood too clean, too rich for someone like me to belong. That's what the call said, right? Suspicious activity. Possible drug operation. Male in a black van. Yeah, because only criminals drive vans. I reached for the defibrillator paddles, focusing everything on the still body in front of me. His pulse was faint, erratic. One more shock, I thought. Just one more to bring him back. The equipment hummed to life, and I pressed the paddles to his chest. Clear, I muttered. His body jerked violently, then slumped back, silent again. Still no time. I started compressions, counting under my breath, blocking out the voices outside. You need to open this van now, a cop yelled. The pounding intensified, metal groaning under each hit. My hands didn't stop. Come on, man, stay with me. I glanced at the monitor, flatline. I couldn't lose him. Not after everything I'd done to get here, not because someone saw a van and panicked. The irony? I was called here. Someone in this house had begged for help, and I was the only one fast enough to respond. Karen. That's what the dispatcher said. A woman called in, hysterical, panicked, screaming that her husband collapsed. When I got here, she wasn't even around. But she was somewhere now, no doubt outside with the cops, feeding them whatever version of reality made sense to her. That I didn't belong. That I was the threat. Not death itself, not the heart that had stopped beating. Me. The man twitched, barely perceptible. Was it a reflex? I leaned in, whispering, don't let them win. Don't let their fear be your death sentence. Another pulse check. Weak. Barely there. But something. I switched techniques, prepping for an emergency thoracotomy. No time to wait. The pounding grew louder. My breath quickened. Outside, I could hear the arguments escalating. A woman's voice, her, was shouting about safety, about strange vans, about how these people show up and ruin neighborhoods. I wanted to scream back. To tell her she was wasting time, precious time, but I didn't. I kept cutting. Focused on the man whose life she might be costing. Focused on keeping my hands steady despite the chaos closing in. Then I heard her say it. My husband's inside. I don't know where he is. He's not answering. My blood ran cold. No. It couldn't be. The man on this table, dying, he was hers? I didn't even know his name. Just that he needed me. That if I failed, she wouldn't just be the reason I was arrested, she'd be the reason he never opened his eyes again. The monitor beeped, a single, erratic spike. My heart raced with it. Stay with me, I hissed, almost a prayer. The cops were at the front now, trying to pry the doors open. I locked them before I started. Protocol be damned. They wouldn't understand until it was over. Until he was breathing again. Until I could look them in the eye and say, this is why I broke your rules. A voice broke through the noise. One of the officers, quieter than the rest. This matches the emergency call address. Silence followed, just for a beat. Then chaos again. Karen's voice, high-pitched, filled with disbelief. What? No, that's impossible. That van doesn't belong here. But it did. I did. Because when no one else showed up, I did. Because when her perfect little world started to crack, I was the one holding the line. Her ignorance, her fear, it didn't matter now. All that mattered was the man in front of me. His eyes fluttered. A gasp, shallow but real. That's it, I whispered, tears threatening to well up. You're coming back. The pounding stopped. Outside, confusion reigned. Inside, the battle was being won, one breath at a time. I leaned back, heart still pounding, hands bloody but steady. The monitor beeped again. Stronger. More regular. He wasn't out of the woods, not by a long shot. But he was alive. And I wasn't going to let anyone, not even her, take that away. The officer's voice cracked through the tension, demanding I open the doors. We will force entry if you do not comply. I didn't flinch. My eyes stayed locked on the man in front of me, who was clinging to life by the thinnest thread. I didn't have time to explain. Didn't have time to argue with cops who thought I was a threat because a woman with too much time on her hands decided I didn't belong. My hands moved on instinct, switching from compressions to preparing the injection that might stabilize his heart long enough for me to save him. A knock, softer this time, came from the driver's side window. Sir, step out. We can sort this out, but you need to stop what you're doing. I kept my back to them. I'm saving a life. This is an ICU, not a crime scene, I called back, injecting the stabilizer into his vein. His body shuddered, breath hitching, and for a moment I thought he was gone. But then a flicker, a pulse returned. Weak, but there. That's all I needed. The door rattled. Keys. They were trying to unlock it. They'd figured out something wasn't adding up, but not fast enough. I glanced at the monitor, numbers climbing slightly. The silence between the beeps had shortened. That was hope. That was why I didn't stop. The woman's voice rose again. He's inside. He's hurt. That man's doing something to him. She still didn't know. Her fear turned into a weapon every time she opened her mouth. I could hear the officer next to her trying to explain, but she wasn't listening. She was too far gone, trapped in her need to control everything. Control the neighborhood, control her image, control the outcome. But not this. My hands worked automatically, prepping the portable oxygen, securing the mask over his face, adjusting until I saw his chest rise, then fall, rhythmically. He was fighting. I could see it. Feel it. The cops didn't matter. The Karen didn't matter. Only he did. I wiped sweat from my brow, glancing at the tiny screen mounted above the stretcher. He needed a hospital, but if they dragged me out of here, he wouldn't make it that far. I knew it. The system was too slow. I'd seen it fail too many times. That's why I built this van. That's why I did what no one else dared, brought the ICU to them. To anyone who needed it. Even people like her. A memory hit me, sharp and unwelcome. A man, years ago, dying in the back of an ambulance while we waited in traffic, boxed in by rubberneckers. His wife screamed, begged us to help, but we couldn't do enough. That's when I knew. Waiting wasn't an option. And I wasn't waiting now. Suddenly, I heard the cop's voice again, closer, more controlled. Hold on. The dispatcher confirmed this is the same address from the 911 call. Another pause. My heart thudded louder than the monitors. This van might be his only chance. Karen's voice cracked. No, you don't know that. He's my husband. I need to see him. The irony made me sick. She was the one who called for help, and now she was the one stopping it. The lock clicked. The doors creaked open slightly, but I didn't turn. I kept working, kept checking vitals, adjusting for flow, watching that fragile line of life tick upwards. Footsteps behind me. I tensed. Step away from him now. An officer shouted, but he didn't move closer. I shook my head, still not looking back. He's alive because I didn't. If you touch me, he dies. Silence followed. Thick. The kind that wraps around your throat and squeezes. Then softer steps. Closer. A different voice. Hers. She gasped. Oh my God! David? Her voice broke on his name. What are you doing to him? I didn't answer her. Not yet. Not until I was sure. I repositioned the mask, cleaned the wound, checked the monitor again. Beeping steady now. Stronger. I exhaled slowly, the tension draining from my shoulders. I'm saving him, I said flatly, turning my head slightly. She was right there, eyes wide, hands covering her mouth. He was gone. I brought him back. She stumbled forward, eyes locked on her husband, ignoring me now, reaching out to touch his hand. No, no, this can't be. Her knees buckled, and an officer caught her. He's alive, I repeated. But barely. You wasted precious time. Tears spilled down her face, mixing with disbelief and guilt. I didn't know. I thought. She didn't finish. She didn't have to. The damage was done. I didn't want her apology. Not now. Maybe not ever. I wasn't here for thanks or recognition. I was here because someone called for help. And despite her best efforts to stop me, I answered. One of the officers stepped forward, hands up, cautious now. What do you need? We'll help. Finally. I gave instructions. Transfer protocols. Immediate hospital transport, but carefully, under supervision. I'd stabilized him, but he wasn't safe yet. He needed full care. Karen stayed by his side, whispering to him, pleading with him to wake up. The officers moved around me, no longer seeing a threat, but a necessity. The same van they tried to break into now became the center of their focus, their respect, maybe even their regret. I cleaned my tools, heart still hammering in my chest. This wasn't over. For him, for her, for me. But for now, he was breathing. And that was enough. Karen stood frozen, her hand barely touching his as if afraid he'd vanish the moment she believed it was real. Her voice was shaking, quiet, but I heard every word. You saved him? She didn't look at me, couldn't. Her eyes were locked on his face, searching for signs of life, for proof that I wasn't lying. I wiped my hands, nodding. I kept him alive. He's not out of danger. But he's here. I didn't want her gratitude, didn't care for it. Her husband was alive because I refused to stop, because I chose not to listen when everyone else decided I was the threat. The cops stood awkwardly, the weight of what they almost allowed sinking in. One of them shifted, stepped closer. We didn't know. We thought. I cut him off with a glare. You didn't think at all. I turned away, checking vitals again. The numbers were stable now, not good, but stable. The kind of stable that gave hope if it wasn't crushed by more delays. Karen finally looked up, her face a mess of guilt and confusion. I didn't know it was you. I didn't know it was him. Her voice cracked, as if the words themselves hurt. I thought you were going to hurt someone. You thought a van didn't belong here, I said flatly, not looking at her. You thought I didn't belong here. That's why you called them. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. The truth hung in the air, too heavy to push aside. Her husband stirred slightly, a groan escaping his lips. She grabbed his hand tighter, tears falling freely. David, I'm here, I'm here. Her voice was desperate, clinging to the hope I'd given her. I stepped back, letting her have that moment. I didn't want it. The officer who'd helped unlock the van cleared his throat. What do we do now? Help me get him transported safely, I said. And get out of my way. Karen's head snapped up. Please, please don't hate me. I didn't mean to almost get him killed? I shook my head, anger cold and sharp. Intentions don't matter when you're dead. The paramedics I'd called as backup finally arrived, bringing real equipment, a full team. They hesitated, unsure of the scene they'd stepped into, but I directed them without pause. Time was still against us. Karen watched, silent, as we worked. She didn't know what to say, maybe there was nothing left. When we lifted him into the ambulance, she followed, still whispering apologies he couldn't hear. I stayed behind, alone with the van and the silence. The neighbors were still watching, doors cracked open, judging, wondering if they'd been wrong too. No one spoke to me. No one asked if I was okay. They didn't care, not really. They cared that it wasn't them lying in the van. That it wasn't their mistake laid bare. Later, at the hospital, I checked in. He was in surgery, stable but critical. The doctors took over where I left off. I wasn't needed anymore, not here. I stood in the hallway, staring at the sterile walls, thinking of all the times I'd been here before. Lives saved, lives lost. All because someone hesitated. Because someone judged. Karen found me there, still in her torn blouse, still shaking. I want to thank you, she said softly. You don't need to, I replied. No, I do. You saved him after what I did. You called for help. And then you stopped it. That's all there is. I looked at her, not angry anymore, just tired. You're lucky I didn't listen. She nodded slowly, eyes on the floor. How do I make this right? You can't. But maybe you can make sure it doesn't happen again. I stepped past her, ready to leave. I had other calls to answer, other lives that might not get a second chance. As I reached the door, she called out, I'll fix this. I'll tell them everything. I didn't stop walking. I didn't need promises. I needed her to understand that next time, someone might not be so lucky. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in colors too warm for a day like this. I climbed into the van, the place that had become my battlefield, my sanctuary, and drove away. Another call was waiting. Another judgment, another chance to prove I wasn't what they thought. But for now I'd won. And that was enough. 3 days passed before I heard from her again. I hadn't expected to, didn't want to. The hospital had kept her husband alive, barely, but alive. I'd done my part. The rest wasn't my responsibility. I'd moved on, answered more calls, fought off more suspicion. One saved life didn't change the next emergency, didn't stop the next Karen from calling the cops on me just for showing up. That's how it always was. But then her name lit up my phone. I ignored it at first. Let it ring, then ring again. On the third call, I picked up. I'm calling a meeting, she said, voice strained but steady. For the HOA. I want you to come. I didn't answer right away. What for? To tell them what happened. To tell them what I did. Her voice cracked, but she kept going. They need to hear it from me. I said nothing, just ended the call. But I went. The room was full. All the same faces that had peeked from windows, whispered behind curtains. Karen stood at the front, hands clasped tight, eyes on me as I walked in. No one spoke. They just watched, waiting for the show. She cleared her throat. Thank you all for coming. Her voice wavered, but she didn't stop. You all know me. You know I care about this community. That's why I have to be honest about something I did. She paused, breathing in deep. A few days ago, I called the police on a man I didn't recognize. I thought he was a threat. I didn't ask questions. I didn't think beyond what I saw. That man was here to save my husband's life. There was a murmur, a few gasps. People shifting in their seats. He didn't hesitate. Not when I did everything to stop him. He saved David anyway. She looked down, ashamed. I let my fear almost kill the man I love. I stood at the back, arms crossed, listening. This wasn't about me. This was about what they needed to hear from her. And maybe, just maybe, what they needed to hear from themselves. Karen's eyes found me. He's here today. And if he hadn't been, I'd be a widow right now. I didn't want to speak, but she nodded, silently asking. So I stepped forward. I don't need your thanks, I said. I'm not here for that. I'm here because this happens too often. I pull up in your neighborhood, you see a van, you see someone you don't know, and suddenly I'm the danger. People looked away, uncomfortable. You called me to help. That's what I did. But next time, maybe someone like me won't get there in time. Or maybe they won't want to, because of what they know they'll face. Karen nodded slowly. I want to change that. I raised an eyebrow. Then don't just apologize. Change the way you see people. The meeting ended in silence. No applause. No cheers. Just the weight of what couldn't be undone. Outside, she caught up with me. I meant it, she said. I'm donating to your service. I'm talking to the board. This can't happen again. I nodded. We'll see. Weeks passed. Her husband recovered, slowly. I kept getting calls. Different places, different people, same fears. But every time I pulled up, I thought of her face, of her voice cracking as she owned what she did. Maybe it wouldn't change the world. Maybe just a corner of it. One night, another call. Different address, same van. As I drove off, I saw her walking her husband down the street. She waved. A real wave, not one hiding judgment. I gave a nod, eyes on the road ahead. Because someone else needed me now. Someone else would judge, or maybe they wouldn't. But I'd be there either way. That's what I do.